4 police chiefs had vanished without a trace. For nearly 3 hours, helicopters searched the skies above rural Georgia, while dispatch centers across 3 counties flooded every available channel with urgent broadcasts. Patrol units combed back roads. Sheriff's deputies checked abandoned farmhouses. State troopers blocked intersections. Every minute that passed made the situation more dangerous. These weren't rookie officers on a routine patrol. They were 4 respected police chiefs, returning from a regional public safety conference where they had spent the day discussing ways to strengthen trust between law enforcement and the communities they served. No one knew that just a few miles away. They were chained to towering pine trees, deep inside a forgotten stretch of forest. The afternoon sun was relentless. Heat poured through the trees like fire, turning the quiet woods into an oven. Heavy steel chains dug into their wrists and across their uniforms. Sweat soaked through their shirts. Their badges, symbols they had worn proudly for decades, lay scattered across the dirt. After being ripped away during the violent attack, Chief Daniel Harris leaned heavily against the rough bark behind him, forcing himself to stay awake, despite the blood running down the side of his face. Years of police service had taught him to remain calm under pressure, but even he could feel hope slipping away. A few feet away, Chief Robert Walker struggled against the chains, wrapped tightly around his chest. Every movement only made the metal bite deeper into his skin. He stopped pulling, knowing panic would only waste the little strength he had left. Chief Anthony Brooks lowered his head. His lips cracked from dehydration. Every breath burned in the suffocating Georgia heat. The oldest among them, Chief Samuel Carter, quietly scanned the surrounding woods with the same disciplined focus that had guided him through more than 30 years in uniform. Even exhausted and injured, he refused to let fear replace leadership. They had spent their entire careers protecting complete strangers. Today, no one was coming for them. Occasionally, the distant sound of passing vehicles drifted through the trees from the nearby county road. Every engine reminded them that help was close, painfully close yet impossibly far away. Several times, they shouted until their voices became little more than whispers. Every passing vehicle continued down the road. No brakes, no footsteps. No rescue, only silence returned. Chief Carter slowly closed his eyes for a moment. "I never thought," he said quietly, "that after all these years wearing this badge, I'd pray for just one person to stop." The others said nothing. There were no speeches left. No comforting words, only the quiet understanding, shared by 4 men who had dedicated their lives to serving others. Then a faint sound interrupted the silence. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Someone was walking through the woods. All 4 chiefs immediately looked toward the trees. Branches shifted. Sunlight filtered through the pines. For a brief moment, nobody appeared. Then a young black teenager stepped cautiously into the clearing. He looked no older than 18. An old backpack rested over one shoulder. His faded work clothes were stained with grease and dust from what looked like a long day of honest labor. Sweat covered his face, and his worn sneakers were coated in George's familiar red clay. He stopped instantly, his eyes widened. He wasn't looking at one injured person. He was looking at 4 police chiefs chained like prisoners. None of it made sense for several long seconds. The young man simply stared. Chief Harris noticed the confusion written across the teenager's face. He also noticed something else. The boy wasn't running, most people would have. The forest was isolated. The attack had clearly been violent. Whoever had done this could still be nearby. Chief Carter gathered enough strength to speak, "Son." His voice was weak but steady. "You need to leave." The teenager looked toward him but didn't move. Chief Carter forced another breath. "The men who did this, they're dangerous. They could still be here if they see you. They won't hesitate." His warning echoed softly between the trees. The young man remained silent. His eyes moved from one chief to another. He noticed the cuts, the bruises, the chains, the exhaustion. He saw 4 respected officers stripped of every advantage. Except their courage, he had every reason to turn around. He had no weapon, no backup. No guarantee he would make it home safely. He could simply walk away and pretend he had never seen any of this. Nobody would blame him. Instead, he slowly slipped the backpack from his shoulder and placed it gently on the ground. The sound of the bag touching the pine needles seemed unusually loud. In the stillness, without rushing, without panic, he walked toward the nearest chief. Every step reflected quiet determination rather than fear. Chief Walker shook his head. Please, you don't understand. The teenager finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It carried the calm confidence of someone raised to believe that helping another person was never the wrong choice. Don't be scared, I'll help you. For a brief moment, time itself seemed to stop. None of the 4 police chiefs knew the young man's name. They didn't know where he lived. They didn't know anything about his family, his dreams, or the struggles he carried long before he stepped into those woods. But they immediately recognized something that every veteran officer hopes still exists. In the world they serve, compassion stronger than fear. The same courage they had sworn to show every day behind the badge was now standing in front of them in the form of a young black man who owed them absolutely nothing. He wasn't thinking about rewards. He wasn't looking for recognition. He wasn't recording the moment or waiting for someone to notice. He simply saw 4 human beings in desperate need of help. And in that quiet clearing beneath the Georgia pines, the distance between a police badge and an ordinary citizen disappeared. There were no titles, no ranks, no uniforms that mattered more than character. Only one young man choosing humanity over fear, and 4 police chiefs witnessing the kind of courage they had spent their entire careers hoping would never disappear from America. The young man took another careful step forward, never breaking eye contact with the injured officers. His heartbeat pounded against his chest, but not because he wanted to run. It pounded because he understood that every second mattered. The cuts across the chiefs' faces, the dried blood on their uniforms, and the heavy steel chains wrapped around the trees told him this wasn't an accident. Someone had wanted these men to disappear. He slowly knelt beside the nearest police chief, whose name tag read Daniel Harris. The chief's forehead was bleeding, and his breathing had become shallow under the crushing afternoon heat. "You shouldn't be here, son," Chief Harris whispered. Whoever did this could still be watching. The teenager glanced into the thick Georgia woods surrounding them. Towering pine trees stretched in every direction. The silence felt unnatural, almost as if the forest itself was holding its breath. "I know," he answered quietly. Chief Samuel Carter, the oldest of the 4, studied the young man carefully. During 34 years in law enforcement, he had interviewed thousands of people. He had learned to recognize fear, deception, anger, and courage simply by watching someone's eyes. This young man wasn't pretending to be brave. He was afraid Chief Carter could see it. His hands trembled ever so slightly. Sweat rolled down his temples. His breathing was faster than normal. Real courage wasn't the absence of fear. Real courage was choosing compassion despite fear. That realization stayed with the veteran chief. "What's your name?" Carter asked Malik. "How old are you, Malik?" 18. Chief Walker let out a slow breath. 18, he quietly shook his head. "You should be thinking about college, not walking into something like this." Malik offered a respectful smile, but his attention never left the chains. "My grandma always says," he replied, while examining the heavy locks, "if someone is hurting, you don't stand there counting reasons not to help." The words settled over the clearing with unexpected weight. Chief Brooks looked at the teenager with genuine surprise. "What does your grandmother do?" Malik smiled again. "She spent 30 years as a nurse." The chiefs exchanged brief glances. Suddenly everything made sense. His calm voice, his patience, the way he was observing injuries before asking questions. He had learned compassion at home. Malik removed his backpack and carefully opened it. Inside there wasn't much: a small first aid pouch, a reusable water bottle with only a few sips left, an old flashlight, a folding multi-tool with scratches covering the handle, a notebook held together with worn rubber bands. Nothing expensive, nothing extraordinary, yet somehow it looked like enough. He walked toward Chief Harris first. "I'm going to clean this cut." Chief Harris nodded. Malik poured a little water onto a clean cloth and gently pressed it against the wound. "I'm sorry if this hurts, it already hurts." Harris answered with a tired smile. "You don't have to apologize." Malik worked carefully, avoiding unnecessary pressure. His movements reminded Chief Carter of experienced emergency medical personnel who remained calm no matter how serious the situation became. "You've done this before?" Carter asked. "My grandma taught me basic first aid. She always says panic makes every emergency worse." Chief Walker laughed softly. "Despite the pain, your grandmother sounds like someone every police academy should hire." A faint smile spread across Malik's face. She says police officers and nurses have something in common. Chief Brooks looked toward him. What's that? They both meet people on the worst day of their lives. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Those simple words carried more truth than most speeches. Every chief sitting there remembered moments when they had arrived at horrific crashes, family tragedies, missing children, house fires, violent crimes, and countless emergencies where frightened families looked toward a badge, hoping someone would make everything better. Most people never saw those moments. They only saw uniforms. Malik saw people. That difference mattered after cleaning Chief Harris' wound. Malik carefully inspected the chains, industrial-grade steel professional padlocks. The kind used on construction equipment. He quietly circled each tree. Instead of pulling randomly, he examined every connection point, studying how the chains overlapped. Chief Carter noticed immediately. "You're thinking," Malik nodded. "If I pull the wrong section, the chain gets tighter." Chief Carter smiled. "Despite the circumstances, you've got an engineer's mind. My teachers used to say that." "Used to," Malik shrugged. "Life changes, plans, no bitterness. No complaint, just honesty." Chief Carter wondered what dreams this young man had quietly placed aside, while taking care of responsibilities most teenagers never faced. As Malik continued studying the restraints, the sound of tires echoed faintly from the nearby highway. All 5 heads turned. A pickup truck rolled past the road. Visible between the trees, it slowed for just a second, then continued driving. Chief Walker closed his eyes. So close, Malik watched the truck disappear. He understood why the driver hadn't stopped. The woods looked dangerous. Most people feared becoming victims themselves, but fear had already stolen enough time. He returned to work using the small multi-tool. He carefully cut away the plastic restraints, binding the chief's wrists beneath the chains. One by one, the plastic snapped. Blood slowly returned to stiff hands. Chief Brooks flexed his fingers for the first time in hours. "I can't thank you enough," Malik simply nodded. "We're not finished yet." He crouched beside the heavy padlocks again. His fingers traced every groove and hinge. Chief Carter observed every movement. "What are you looking for? A weakness?" "There usually is one." Chief Harris couldn't help smiling. "You always think like this. My grandma says every problem has an answer. You just have to stop panicking long enough to see it." Again, the chiefs exchanged quiet glances. There was wisdom in that little house, wherever this young man had come from. Wisdom that couldn't be measured by money. While searching the ground around the trees, Malik noticed disturbed dirt leading toward thick bushes nearby, fresh footprints, broken branches, a dragged line across the soil. His instincts told him whoever attacked these officers had searched the area quickly before leaving. Criminals often overlooked small things when they were in a hurry. He slowly followed the trail. Chief Harris called after him. "Be careful." Malik raised one hand without looking back. "I will." Several yards away, half hidden beneath dry pine needles, something metallic reflected a thin beam of sunlight. He brushed away the leaves. A single key. His pulse quickened. He hurried back. The first lock, nothing. The second, still nothing. The third, a sharp metallic click echoed through the clearing. Chief Walker's chain loosened. The heavy steel dropped against the ground. Nobody spoke. Hope had suddenly become real. Malik immediately helped Walker sit comfortably before trying the same key on the remaining locks. It refused to turn. Different locks. Different keys. He exhaled slowly, instead of showing frustration. There have to be more. Chief Carter watched him with quiet admiration. Most people celebrated one success. Malik immediately focused on the next problem. The veteran chief thought about every leadership seminar he had attended throughout his career, every lecture about integrity, every speech about public service. Yet here in the middle of an isolated Georgia forest, an 18-year-old black teenager was demonstrating those values without wearing a badge, carrying a title, or asking for recognition. For the first time since the attack began, Chief Carter believed they were going to survive. Malik looked at the 3 heavy padlocks that still held the remaining police chiefs against the towering pine trees. One lock had opened, but the key refused to fit the others. He took a slow breath and forced himself to think instead of panic. His grandmother had always told him that fear makes people rush, but wisdom makes people observe. He knelt beside the chains again, running his fingers across the thick steel links. The cuts on Chief Harris' wrists were getting worse. Chief Brooks was becoming weaker with every passing minute. In the afternoon, he continued to climb. Every second mattered. "I'm sorry," Malik said quietly. "This key isn't enough." Chief Carter gave him a reassuring nod, despite his own pain. "Son, you've already done more than anyone else." Malik looked at the surrounding forest. No, there has to be another way. His eyes followed the deep tire tracks leading away from the clearing. Whoever had attacked the chiefs hadn't simply disappeared. They had left in a hurry, and people who rushed often made mistakes. Without wasting another second, Malik searched every inch of the ground around the trees. Broken branches, empty water bottles, torn pieces of rope, fresh footprints pressed into the Georgia clay. Then he noticed something farther ahead. 4 black police SUVs sat hidden behind a line of pine trees, their emergency lights smashed, tires slashed and doors hanging open. The attackers had abandoned them after stripping away anything valuable. Malik hurried toward the nearest vehicle. Inside, the dashboard had been destroyed, and the radio had been ripped from its mount. He searched beneath the seats, inside the center console, and through the storage compartments. Nothing. He moved to the second SUV. Again, nothing useful. The third vehicle was no different. As he reached the fourth SUV, sunlight reflected from something resting beneath the driver's seat. A compact hydraulic rescue cutter, the kind many police departments carried for emergency situations. Malik pulled it free, wiped away the dirt, and smiled for the first time since entering the forest. "Thank you," he whispered. Chief Brooks looked toward Malik, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I've spent 28 years wearing this badge. I've received medals, I've been recognized for bravery. But today you showed us what courage really looks like." Before Malik could answer, Chief Carter placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "Young man, I've LED officers through hurricanes, mass shootings, natural disasters, and rescue operations. I've trained thousands of police officers, but I've never witnessed a heart stronger than yours." Malik lowered his eyes. "I only did what anyone should do." Chief Carter smiled gently. "No, most people believe that. Very few actually live it." Moments later, the distant sound of helicopters echoed across the Georgia sky. Then came another sound. Police sirens growing louder. Louder still. Within minutes, deputies, state troopers, search and rescue teams, EMTs and officers from multiple agencies poured into the clearing. The missing police chiefs had been found. Paramedics rushed toward the injured chiefs, while deputies secured the area. One officer approached Malik. "Were you the one who found them?" Malik nodded quietly. Another officer looked around at the broken chains before turning back toward the teenager. "You did all this alone, I just helped." The officer removed his cap for a brief moment, a silent gesture of respect. Across the clearing, Chief Carter refused to climb into the ambulance until he pointed toward Malik. "Make sure someone gets his name. No, make sure everyone remembers it." As officers surrounded the young man, there were no flashing cameras or reporters asking questions. There was only genuine gratitude. Every officer standing there understood something that often gets forgotten. A badge represents service, but service doesn't belong only to those who wear one. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage come from ordinary people who choose compassion over fear. Weeks later, thousands of police officers from departments across America would return to that small Georgia town, not because policy required it, but because gratitude demanded it. They came to honor a young black man whose courage reminded them why they first chose to wear the badge.